Do you get anxious at work? Have you got that worry around an impending deadline? Do you get that rising feeling of dread in the workplace? Well, if the answer is yes, then the chances are you are suffering from workplace anxiety. Unfortunately, keeping quiet is not the answer, and that can only make things worse. But fortunately, I am here today to help you overcome that, because I know what it's like to battle with workplace anxiety. Hello and welcome to this channel. My name is Brendan. I am a recovering accountant based here in London, and I help millennials navigate busy lives and make sure that work doesn't suck. Today we're going to talk about a topic which I'm sure has impacted all of us at some point or another. Battling with anxiety. Being told to stop feeling anxious when you are feeling anxious is like trying to tell yourself to go to sleep when you're an insomniac. It just makes the situation worse. We all know how that feels when you are desperate to get to sleep, but your mind is racing 10 to a dozen and you're unable to unwind and switch off. Anxiety is very much the same. It will impact us in many different ways. What affects me might not affect you, and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that we can't battle through this together, because today I am going to give you the 6 tips on how to deal with workplace anxiety. Now, before I dive in, I just want to say that everybody battles with anxiety in some way, shape or form. Whether they verbalize it and tell you, or you understand, or they let you into what matters to them, the chances are it will have affected all of us. For me, just so that you know, anxiety manifests itself in my heart beating in my chest. If I can't turn that feeling off, that's anxiety. Having been through cognitive behavioral therapy over the last few years, I now know that I get anxious and have anxiety pangs when I feel like my integrity is being questioned. I did a great deal of work with my therapist around values, and actually I wish I'd known a lot of this 10 years ago, although whether I'd have been able to mentally deal with that 10 years ago is a different story. But when I know that my integrity is being questioned, it makes me feel anxious, and for me it manifests itself in the beating in my chest. I just can't turn it off. It just gets louder and louder and louder, and no matter how much I try and tune out, it still feels like my heart is going to come out of my chest. For me to be able to deal with it, I need to verbalize it. I need to address the situation, and it's usually around giving somebody a heads up or trying to tell somebody something that's happening, and it is often trying to preempt something that I think might be going wrong. In days gone by, it may have been around a relationship status, or in terms of making sure my boss is aware of something that could potentially go wrong, but it can manifest itself in many ways. But for me, it is the heart beating in my chest, and as I say, it's been nice to work out what instigates it and causes it, but it has taken a long, hard journey to get there. So if you are struggling to work out what is causing your anxiety, don't worry, because today I'm going to talk to you about the 6 tips on how to deal with workplace anxiety. So with that, let's dive straight in. Number 1 is what you feel is real. Now, I know that sounds a little bit silly, but unlike physical ailments, when if you break your leg and you have your leg in a cast, people give you the sympathy and they give you the empathy and they understand that there is something wrong. There can sometimes be no outward indication that you are struggling. In much the same way we have physical fitness, I like to talk about mental fitness. It's not mental health, because mental fitness needs to be worked on. Just like our physical fitness we need to work on to get fitter, we need to work on our mental fitness to get stronger, to get better, to be able to deal with what life throws at us. Because what you are feeling is real, no one is able to tell you that you're wrong. No one is able to tell you what you should or shouldn't be feeling. That means you need to cut yourself some slack. Give yourself a break. Is the anxiety because you are putting undue pressure on yourself? Are you trying to deliver to unreal expectations? If you have that feeling in your stomach, or you can feel your heart beating in your chest, or other indications that anxiety is coming to the forefront, don't ignore them. Accept them. What you feel is real, so embrace it. Embrace it so that you can deal with it. But the first part is to acknowledge that it's there. So number 1 is what you feel is real. Number 2 is your employer won't fire you. Now, I know that sounds a little bit silly because telling somebody that you're vulnerable or you feel vulnerable is a really hard thing to do, and certainly in the workplace, if you're worried about job security, letting your employer know that you're feeling anxious is a really tough thing to do. There's even a crazy statistic that says 38% of people that suffer with anxiety believe that if they did tell their employer would let them go, which is mind-blowing. Really, we just shouldn't let that even be part of the conversation. If you have an anxiety attack at work, you won't get fired. In the modern day and age, people are far more attuned and aware of what is going on, and they would rather that you talk to them and tell them how you're feeling than suffer in silence. Again, this is a hard thing to do, and depending on your employer, you may find that easier to do than in others. But mental health and mental fitness is here to stay, and employers are in a really difficult position to be able to get rid of you just by having an anxiety attack. There are many processes that have to be adhered to push somebody out, but I don't think it's something that you should be worried about. I'm sure your employer would much rather you explain and talk to them about how you're feeling and ultimately get back to feeling much better, because then your productivity and your enthusiasm and your engagement levels, I'm sure, will rise too. Quite simply, the law is on your side, so please don't worry about getting fired. Number 3 is work with your anxiety, not against it. Now you're probably sitting there going, Brendan, what? How does that even work? Well, when you feel anxious, you get a burst of adrenaline. Now the adrenaline sweeps through your body and you might get goose pimples. In actual fact, I've just given myself a bit of goosebumps now. And you could potentially use that adrenaline to tackle the difficult thing that's on your to-do list. What is it that you're being fearful of? If that adrenaline boost gives you the opportunity to go, stuff it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna have that hard, tough, difficult conversation. Yes, I know I'm going to take a bit of a shoeing, but I've got to do it. Then that can be a good thing. Conversely, if the adrenaline doesn't work for you, just take a moment to sit back and understand and acknowledge how you feel. There's a coaching technique that says notice and name, and I've used it in nutrition coaching, but here it is just as applicable when we're talking about anxiety. Notice and name how you're feeling. The environment that you're in. Are you sat at work in a cubicle? Is somebody asking you a question? Is there a lot of background noise? Is there stuff going on about you? What is it that's causing you to feel that way? Then write it down. Notice and name it. Even say it out loud, because once you say it out loud, then it comes to your forefront, it's part of your consciousness, and then you can decide whether you're feeling a little bit silly about it or in actual fact get on and deal with it. So, when you're feeling anxious, take a moment, acknowledge the situation, be present, think about your whole self, try and be mindful, and that's just being clear in thought and understanding of what's going on. Sit with your fears for a moment and then create a plan. Now here's a tip for you. I have used something called the what could go wrong list. Now, as the name suggests, it's listing out all the things that could go wrong. I originally used it in my Ironman training to understand what are the things I could control and those things that I couldn't. Now in this situation, when dealing with anxiety, if you were to write down all of the items that are making you anxious and put in a column next to it, can you control it? If the answer is yes, write in the next column next to it, mitigant, i.e. what can you do to mitigate or stop that from happening? If the answer is no, then you just need to let it go. You may hear the phrase control the controllables, and that's very much the same thing in a different phrase. Creating a plan, understanding what you can control, and acknowledging that you can't control everything will help you deal with your anxiety. So give it a go. Create a what could go wrong list. Talk to somebody about it, and I promise you, it'll make you feel better. Number 4 is all around being proactive with self-care. Can you include more regular breaks in your working day? Can you take a stroll? Can you go and talk with a friend? Can you take some time out? What is it that will help you be your best? Now, often people talk about being selfish when they want to just spend time on their own and do their own thing. That's not right. It's about being selfless. If you invest more in yourself, it means you can give more to others. But in modern society, we have been taught that actually spending time on our own and doing stuff that we want to do is being regarded as selfish. It's not the case. If you are feeling run down or anxious or on edge, invest time in yourself. It's the greatest thing you can do. Personal development, understanding your body, understanding what works for you is time very well spent. As I say, if you invest in yourself, it means you can then give more to others. And that is a great thing, not only from a working perspective, but also for your friends, colleagues, family around you. Number 5 is all around focusing on the facts. How many times have you had a conversation with yourself in your head and just overthought things? Oh, what happens if this happens? Yeah, what do I do then? But could this happen? And what happens then if this is going to go that way? And what happens if that fails? What are the facts? Have you just started to hypothesize and overthink and get carried away in your thinking? Because if the answer is yes, then you need to stop it. That might not happen. In much the same way we talked about controlling the controllables, not overthinking the situation is also critical with dealing with anxiety. I've got a very good friend of mine who loves to overthink things and comes up with all these different scenarios. Well, that might be fun every once in a while, but my word, it is tiring. If you suffer with anxiety, break it down, deal with the facts. Now, at this stage, I have to acknowledge that my other half will tell me that I'm massively objective and I can be quite brutal when it comes to just dealing with the facts and not overthinking things. She'd probably tell me that I don't think about stuff enough, but that's a different scenario. So if that is the case, then write stuff down and deal with the facts. If it hasn't happened yet, is it likely to happen? If the answer is no, then don't worry about it. If the answer is yes, what do those facts mean? So if I'm worried about giving a presentation tomorrow, can I worry about that I'm going to be late? Well, yes, because I can control which train I get on. Can I control if the train is cancelled? Well, no, because that's outside of my control. Conversely, if I get to the presentation area, can I worry about what people think around my talk? Well, yes, because I'm delivering it. So that means that I need to focus on my delivery and what I'm saying. Are people interested in what I'm saying? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you've just already tuned out and this is not your cup of tea and this is not the video for you. Well, that's cool. I can't worry about that. Fear is an absolute nightmare when it comes to dealing with anxiety or progress or making change. Fear is what holds us back. So focus on the facts. And finally, number 6 should be quite an obvious one, but ask for help. Nobody wants you to suffer in silence. At no point ever. At no point ever. Please don't suffer in silence. It's just not worth it. When work is hectic, it's easy to get caught up and say yes and commit to more and feel like you're getting overwhelmed. But the discomfort of asking for help and saying, I can't do this, I don't understand, I don't know, far outweighs the worry around saying yes and then not knowing what you're doing. Ask for help. I would rather one of my team turn around to me and say, I'm hugely overwhelmed, I don't know what's going on, I know I said I could do it, but I can't, please can you help me? Then we get to the deadline and all of a sudden somebody turns around and goes, I was hugely overwhelmed, I'm sorry, I just haven't done it. Well, what was the cause behind that? We need to understand that. But in that instance, please don't sit there and suffer in silence. If you are really battling, ask for professional help. I've done that in the past. I went to see my GP and I got a referral to see a CBT therapist. In actual fact, it was one of the best experiences of my life. And I laughed more in the session than I ever thought was possible. You imagine therapy sessions to be really dour and intense and we want to cry all the time. Well, yeah, there were tears, but also I had a really good laugh. He was excellent at helping understand my problems, and the moment I started verbalizing and talking about them, I could start to address them. So please don't suffer in silence, and if you need to, ask for help. Now I'm going to give you a bonus tip, and this is something that I actually learned from my CBT therapy, and it's called worry up and worry down days. If you suffer with anxiety, try this exercise. On a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want you to worry up. So that means that you worry about everything. You over worry. And that sounds a bit silly, but you just think, oh, am I going to wake up in time? Am I going to have enough food? Am I going to be able to do the work today? You literally raise the level of worry in everything that you do. Seems strange, right? But on the alternative days, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I want you to worry down. Don't worry about anything. Just let it go. Water off a duck's back, or whatever the appropriate phrase is. Just don't worry about anything. Will we get to the presentation on time? Yeah, probably. Do we need to let so-and-so know that we're running late? No, it'll be fine. It doesn't mean you don't care, just means that you don't worry. Now, the purpose of doing these worry up and worry down days is to highlight how worrying affects the outcome. The answer is it doesn't. But you need to go through that approach. You need to go through that exercise to help understand it for yourself. I did it. I worried up on days and I worried down on days, and to be honest, it made no difference to the outcome. It was just really tiring. Worrying a lot is very, very tiring, and I just got to the end of the day and I was mentally fatigued. But it is a great way of helping you understand how worrying affects the output. And that's it. They are my 6 tips for dealing with workplace anxiety. I hope you found them useful. If you did, please do check out this video here where I talk about imposter syndrome and how to deal with it. But with that, I will wish you all a good day. Don't worry, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.